This is Dan Bolen, your host of the podcast, The Courage to Be Courageous, where people come from all over the United States to hear stories and to give stories of how they've been able to be their authentic self, how they've been able to face fear and work through their fear to be who they truly are. And you're going to hear some encouraging stories. I hope this is my, 22nd podcast. And I have to say, we have a very, very special guest today. And let me tell you why it's special for my podcast listeners and for me at the studio here. And hopefully will be for Abigail as well. One of the things that's been something I wanted to do for a long time is to talk to a wife who has actually found out she was married to a gay man and how she was able to work that through. What was her pain? Because obviously there was a severe amount of pain, maybe even some humiliation, and how she was able to work through that. So for our podcast listeners, there's going to be those out of you that perhaps are husbands that have not come out to your wives. There may be wives that have not come out to their husbands. How are you able to deal with that pain? How are you able to deal with that, that in some ways you may feel it was treachery, dishonesty? Well, I think your podcast, you'll be able to pick up some incredible points. And my guest today is Abigail Batton. If you remember, several months ago, I interviewed her husband, Jeff Batton, and you heard his story of how he came out as gay. And he wrote a book called Grinning like a Jackass Eating Briars. You'll have to read the book to find out what that means. But this is his ex-wife, Abigail. I think she has a powerful story. We were able to preview it yesterday. And we're going to learn some really incredible points about forgiveness, moving on, even though there has been pain, severe pain in their life. So, Abigail, welcome to my podcast. It's such a pleasure to have you. And
thank you, Dan. I'm glad you asked me to be here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to ask you to be here as well. I think this is going to be a powerful story. So tell me a little bit about you and Jeff and how you ended up finding out he was gay, and a little bit about the history there and the travels you did with your children. I believe you have 3 children.
That's right.
2 girls and a boy.
They're all up and out. They're all grown now.
They're all grown, yes, grown adult children. So tell us a little bit about how you met and how your life was and how at the time that you guys got married. Well, just give me some history behind that.
We met sort of loosely through a person at a church. Jeff was very involved in the church. I wasn't. And we had a mutual connection who thought we would be great together. Mm-hmm. I think we're both really energetic and have similar optimism, I think, in life. So maybe they thought that would be a good fit. And when I met Jeff Batton, I did think he was beautiful. I thought he was a beautiful, good-looking man, very funny, put me at ease. I felt comfortable. And I just laughed all the time. And that's not a bad thing to have in life.
It isn't.
We got married pretty quickly. He did tell me that he had I don't think he said experimented, but that he had fallen in love with a man named Len. Maybe this was in college. Honestly, I don't remember now, but he was really important for me to meet Len. Now Jeff believed that God had healed him from homosexuality. And, he met me and we were going to get married, and that was a testimony to God's healing, Jeff thought. I didn't really know too much about it. Homosexuality, hadn't given it too much thought. It wasn't a part of my life in any kind of way. But I met Len. I thought he was beautiful. I'm like, well, I would have fallen in love with Len too. Who wouldn't have? He's gorgeous and warm. He's very warm. And I don't know why Jeff invited me to meet him. And honestly, I don't even know if Jeff maintained a friendship with him. I never saw him after that. He was a guest at our wedding. He was an honored guest at our wedding. And I was really happy to have him there because he was somebody who also had loved Jeff, and I loved Jeff. And I thought that's not a bad thing to have in the world, people loving you. So then, fast forward, we have children right away. We open a coffee shop together, and we're poor. What that means is that we're poor. And we joined this very radical arm of the church that we had been going to. We're going to what I call Sensible Church. And then we got very radical with the missionary arm of that church, which was called Blood and Fire Ministries. And this was in downtown Atlanta, and it was rugged and homeless. We were inviting homeless people to come live in our home, and we just radicalized ourselves to serve the poor. And we did that. We were a part of the ministry for 7 years. And I think maybe 3 of those years we were in Atlanta. We went to Hong Kong. We had 3 kids by now. The youngest was, I think our baby was not even a year old when we flew to Hong Kong with these kids. And the girls were like 3 and 2 or something. So it was wildness. Honestly, it was just wild, even chaos. And I think there was some danger in there that we were both titillated by, but we both felt called to this social action of serving the poor. Now, Jeff had a fever behind it. He was pitched. There was a pitch about him that I didn't have. I thought maybe he was just more religious than I was, because I wasn't really as into the God thing, but I did believe in serving the poor. But he started saying this verse in Isaiah about serve the poor and your healing will come quickly. And that didn't really become relevant to me, because I thought, well, we're all broken. We're all humans. We're all broken. We all need healing. Until fast forward now, we've been in the ministry about 7 years. We're living in London now, serving the poor in London. We have a house with like maybe 4 or 5 missionary kids living with us. I say kids, they're like college age kids who served on our team. And then we had a lot of poor people coming and spending the night. And we walked the kids to school. The kids were in a school on the corner there. And on our way home, Jeff wasn't usually around. We were very busy. It was a very heavy work time for us. When you have the poor, it's constant. I mean, somebody's throwing up, somebody's ODing, somebody needs to be visited in jail, whatever. There's just always something big going on. But Jeff, for some reason that morning, I guess he had sought me out, decided to walk with me to take the kids to school. And on our way back, it's just the 2 of us. And we stop at this pond. There's this little mama duck with a broken wing and her little chicks. And we sat down and he said, look, I want to tell you something. And I could tell it was important. He wasn't just being cursory or we were kind of surface by that point, I think. I think we were just exhausted, honestly.
Right.
He said, I have fallen, I think he's so long ago. I think he said, I have fallen in love with a boy from Denmark, or a Dutch boy. Maybe he said a boy who's Dutch. And he meant a college age kid. He didn't mean a child. He called him a boy, but I think the kid was like 25 or something. And we were in our late 30s at the time. And I was really stunned by that, because I thought, well, gosh, we've got this big thing going. We're leaders in this church movement. We speak, Jeff and I spoke around the world for people to go serve the poor. We were Christian poster children. And I thought about that for half a second, but I think honestly, Dan, part of me wasn't surprised, because, maybe Len came back into mind. Also, the internet was becoming really popular back when we were first married. We were older. And a couple of times I would get on the computer, and one time there was this chat room opener. So I didn't really know what that was. This was not a thing back. This is brand new. Internet's new in homes. This is dial up with the AOL and it gets on your phone line. And somebody popped in and said it was called Hot for You, or some kind of sexual name. This man, and he started like right in getting really sexual, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I think you're confused. The man you're looking for is married. He's children. And he got off it immediately. But that was like this one isolated incident. But when we were at the pond, I was thinking, well, okay, I guess he didn't get healed. Maybe he's still gay. He wanted to stay married. He was very clear about that. He liked things the way they were. He loved having the kids. And, he was a good father. But I didn't want that. I'm like, well, what is going to be in this? What's in this for me? I was really embarrassed, and I was hurt, and I felt like I wasn't good enough. And later, people in my circle reified that message that, well, you didn't have sex with him enough, or you weren't alluring enough, or you didn't keep him interested. You chased him away. You made him be tempted by the homosexual lifestyle, because the church believed that the lifestyle was a choice. But I actually never really bought into that. And like I said, I was indifferent to homosexuality. It didn't matter to me if someone was gay or not. If they needed a bed, I was going to give them a bed. What did it matter to me? So, okay, in the end, I decided to fly back to the States with the kids, because I didn't want to accept his proposal that I stay married to him to keep the ministry going, and we felt like we were doing something important in the world, helping people understand how to serve the poor effectively and radically. And But the marriage was fake. It was a facade. It wasn't real. He wasn't in love with me, and I was able to see that. And I was humiliated in the first year or two of that. I was deeply humiliated. And I did have people in the churches, pastors, saying, "Look, don't leave him, don't divorce. This is miracle territory. Let's just keep praying. You're in love with him." And I was at the time. I was in love with Jeff, but I didn't believe that he needed a miracle. I thought he was gay. I didn't think that needed a miracle. That was the miracle. The miracle was I was married to a man who was gay. I didn't consider his homosexuality anything that was against me. I didn't see it as a weapon against me. He wasn't using it against me. He never belittled me in any kind of way that I wasn't enough, or I simply just wasn't. I wasn't a man. I wasn't what he needed or wanted. And
that was courageous on your part to come to that point. It took a while, I'm sure.
Well,
because you even made a comment to me yesterday that part of this scripture in Isaiah, you thought that you were both involved in the church, but you felt, and you used a word that Jeff was more
indoctrinated.
Well, I think he was in desperation. By serving the poor. Would that be correct?
Yeah. Yeah, you're right about that. And of course, when he told me he was gay and, that it had been a real struggle for him, our whole marriage, I think we'd been married, I don't even know, 12 years by then. I have no idea. I don't even remember. It was such a weird time. Well, then his frenetic kind of desperation to serve the poor made a huge amount of sense to me. There was a desperation behind it. He was desperate to be healed. This is a man who did not want to be gay. Honestly, I think I accepted him as gay more quicker than he accepted himself as gay.
I think that's true. I think that's totally true.
I really do.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, then he left, and then it became very, very hard and dark. He was gone from the kids and I. We were poor. He didn't support us. He wasn't around. He flew in when it felt good to him. He was off finding and celebrating his homosexuality. He was a free gay man. Now we were out of the church. He didn't have those constrictions. I don't really know that he wasn't fettered, I guess is a better way to say it, by the church dogma. And he was celebrating in the way that gay men can celebrate.
I think that had to make you angry and feeling abandoned. Would that be a fair statement at that time?
I loved that he was finding joy and happiness because I didn't realize how grim and miserable he had been in our marriage till I saw him happier.
Right.
So, there was relief in that to see that he had that in him. And I was furious that he abandoned us and came in when it felt good and became a fly-in Disney dad. I hated that. I hated that we were poor, and I had to, and part of me was grateful. I told you this yesterday or when we spoke. I think that had we not been so freaking poor, I was working at Starbucks as a barista. I was started back to school. I had no education. We had no income other than me working at Starbucks, and I was on food stamps. We were of the poor, and because of that, I resented him for going off and having fun, and he was having fun. But I think I was so. Put your head down, do the job. I had 3 little kids. They were bewildered. They were confused. They were lost a parent essentially for a while. And when he did come in, it was frothing up all this emotion. And he'd be like, he would need attention, and he needed to be secure that they still loved him, which of course they did. They of course they do. But I resented him for that. But I never resented him for being who he truly was. I think he did it poorly. I think there's a way to be an honorable homosexual father.
Yes.
I think it took a long time to find his road back to that with integrity and honor. But I never begrudged him his path to finding and celebrating the fullness of who he was. His entire life, he was fettered by expectations of his parents, of the church. He grew up in a small Southern culture. He would have, everything was against him essentially to be gay. And finally, he was able to say, "I'm gay," and not be judged for that, or to be, I don't know. He was folded in. The homosexual community is anything but it's accepting and loving and supportive. And he became a part of that. Well, the divorced woman I was kind of pushed out of the church because they would have preferred I killed him. Honestly, it would have been easier for the church to forgive me for murder than it was for divorce. So I felt pushed out, and
That's a powerful
didn't have.
statement. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, honestly, Dan,
I get
and
that.
I didn't have the casseroles or the parties there were no flags flying in my front yard. No one was celebrating that. So I didn't like the disparity between that, but it wasn't much to do with his gayness, really, as much to do with the choices he made by going out
gayness,
and around his gayness. Yeah, he was making bad choices. Now he will tell you that. He will own that. He has asked the children for forgiveness. He has offered restitution. He has worked very, very hard in their adult years to earn their trust. And I would say he's doing a worthy job of that. I respect him for it.
Well, that's powerful. There was a time, and was it this time, Abigail, that you wrote a book that how you felt at the time, and I'd like to have you talk about that book that was going through a lot of feelings of abandonment and pain, and that book that you wrote. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because that was where you were at the time. And the reason I think that's important, because there's many women who are listening out there that are going to be in that same position of anger, felt they were abandoned, felt they were treated not fairly, family was not treated fairly. So let's talk a little bit about that book. I think that will have a powerful effect on our listeners.
Well, okay, let me clarify, Dan. Jeff and I weren't friends for a long time. I was mad. I was angry at his poverty. I was angry at his choices. And then he slowly became this man that I grew to respect. And we became and are and will always be now. He's one of my best friends. I would trust him with my life. I'm very close to Jeff. He's important to me. So it was during that time when we were really reconciling and becoming friends again and remembering why we loved each other to begin with, he got married to a guy I adore, and I remarried. And it was in that second marriage that to a heterosexual man who betrayed me with a woman. When he left me, I think some of that feeling I had from Jeff, that maybe I thought I had resolved but didn't, and then coupled with this feeling I had with this man leaving me for this woman, and it was another very public display.
Yes.
He ended up marrying a mistress, that kind of thing. I wrote a book called Savvy Girl's Guide to Heartbreak Survival. That book, I want to caution your listeners, it's a niche book. If you have felt betrayed and you're in the throes of the pain and the rejection, I was on the floor with a bottle of vodka, honestly. I really was at the time I wrote it. I wrote it in real time as it was happening. It took me about 8 months to write that book. I got it published. I did a podcast series that went with it about betrayal. And I'm no longer in that place. I got through forgiveness, and then I got to the ultimate, which to me is the pinnacle of healing, which is gratitude. But when I wrote that book, I was not in forgiveness, and nor was I in gratitude. So it's rough, but it's real. And it's an authentic look at a woman who is lying on the floor with a bottle of vodka because her life has just exploded.
Yes.
So any woman who has experienced that, and you're discovering that your husband is gay or whatever's happening to you, the book may be useful for you to say, hey, I'm not alone in this rage. I'm not alone in this helplessness. Because honestly, when you discover or find out or agree to accept or come to terms with the idea that you've married and fallen in love with a man who's gay, there's a powerlessness in that. I had no power over Jeff. I wasn't going to be sexy enough to make him straight. I wasn't going to be Christian enough to make him straight. There wasn't any godly wifeliness in me that was going to be sacred enough to make him straight. He's a gay man.
And it had nothing to do with you. It had nothing to do with you.
Women, it's
but I think women do think it does, and that's
of course we do.
I think your comment there is very powerful. Yes.
Yeah, we're trained from young age. You got to catch the guy.
Yeah.
Here's how you do it. You stay attractive. You stay witty. You serve them. You make them their breakfast in bed. You give them sex. I mean, that's what we're trained to do. And so when it goes awry, they find a mistress or they're gay or any number of things. It's on the wife. I had people say to me, you should have tried harder, or you didn't pray hard enough, or, you should have been more sexy with him. And both my husbands. And that really, that's irrelevant. It's not
Totally
not
irrelevant.
So
totally irrelevant.
we have to stop blaming the wives. We have to stop blaming the girlfriends for men who are gay. We are not responsible for that, and nor is their gayness something that needs to be fixed.
Because it can't be fixed.
It's not broken. That was never broken. He lacked honor. He lacked maturity, but he wasn't broken because he was gay. That's how he came to the world. That's the gift the world got. Jeff was a gay man. My kids get that gift.
Wow.
I never saw him as broken. I never saw him as something that needed fixed.
Wow. I want to just take a second to pause on that comment. That was so powerful.
Okay.
You never thought he was broken and needed to be fixed. And
No,
how many of us...
I think he thought that.
Yeah. But how many of us think that we can fix them? How we can change them? It's like, and I've used this in my podcast before, it's about a black man trying to be white. He was born black. He can try everything he can. You can't fix him and make him white. He is black. Jeff was gay. I am gay. And
that's the gift that you bring to the world. And the people you love and the children you have and the women that love you, that's the gift you bring to the world. And who would I be to try to diminish that in any kind of way? What kind of world would it be if we think that something is aberrant and we're going to fix it when it's a gift?
Wow.
Jeff coming into the world gay is his gift to the world. You being a gay man, that's what you bring to the world. Me being a straight woman, honestly, take that out of it. We're just humans in the world.
yes.
We're not broken.
And we want to be our authentic self. And a lot of the pain comes from, and heartache and addiction comes from, we ourselves sometimes have so much shame, we think we're broken. And that's when we use addiction to try to get through it. Well, Abigail, those were some powerful comments. And I just thank you for that. Some really gems there that I'm going to think about, dissolve even more fully. But let's talk about your children and how you were able to break it to them, how they're dealing with Jeff today.
Listen, if I could get a redo, I would redo that. I would not do it the way he did it. It was Jeff was really protective of his homosexuality. The kids were really young. I think our youngest boy was maybe he was in first grade, and the girls that would be second and third. They were really young, maybe fourth. I don't know. They might be a bump older than that, but they were grade school kids. And when Jeff first left, he was out and proud, but not with the children. I don't know why, but I didn't want to be the one to tell them because I felt like that was his to tell them. I felt like he should do that, but it was kind of dragging on, and I think he was nervous to tell him. I don't know. And one day, just sort of out of the blue, all of us were walking down the street together in this little neighborhood, and he said, all of our important things happen on walks, it seems like. He said, Will and Grace, because we would watch Will and Grace all the time on Netflix or whatever it was. And the kids were like, yeah, we love Will and Grace. He said, well, that's your mom and I. Your mom is Grace and I'm Will. And that's how he sort of told them. And they're like, what? What?
Did they get it? Did they get it at the time?
Yeah.
Oh, they did get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Listen, we had a lot of gay men in our. Jeff was surrounded by gay men our entire marriage. My kids grew up with gay men their entire. So this wasn't a shocking, horrifying thing for my children to find out. There were many people in our lives that were gay that they loved. This wasn't like, oh no, what does this mean? The kids are going to tease me at school, or it wasn't. They didn't feel a need to be ashamed of it because we weren't ashamed of it.
Right.
There's nothing to be ashamed of. We didn't see it that way. We didn't see it the way some people in the world see it. I'll put it that way. So I think that they were shocked. I mean, what does that mean about them? The older ones, how did we get here? If dad is gay, he wants to be with boys and you're a girl, and obviously I birthed 3 children. We've had 3 children together. So there were questions, and Jeff and I both tried, I guess. I think it was a time of toil and fear. Poverty causes you to be afraid all the time.
Yes.
And I was still upset that we were so poor and he wasn't really contributing at that point. He did later, but he wasn't at that point. It was just like, I just wanted to get on. I felt like I was in a factory. Let's just make sure the kids are fed. Let's make sure the homework is done. Get them. We lived in all the three kids shared a little bedroom. They're like little orphans. I had three little single beds lined up in this tiny little bedroom. We were so poor. I just wanted to get through it, and I don't think I handled it well. I think it's that I wish we could have slowed it down. I wish we could have been more gentle and less flippant and less, she's great, then I'm well. It's like, I just think we didn't give them a full portion. We gave them an appetizer, and they needed a meal, and they needed to discuss the meal, and they needed to adjust the meal and talk about the ingredients of the meal. And we didn't provide that for them. Through the years we have, but at the initial telling, it was a lot of chaos in our family. And Jeff was in for a second, and he flew away. He was flying for Delta at the time, and he literally would fly away. I called him Peter Pan, and and we didn't see him for, he dropped the Will and Grace thing, and he was gone, and then just get on with it. I got to go to work. I got to go to school, blah, blah, blah. So I think that they were shortchanged. I wish I could handle them with more gently and with more compassion.
When he flew out on Delta and he left you there, and he let them know that he was gay, did they have questions to you at that time individually while Jeff was not there?
They did.
How did you handle those?
The oldest, how I don't understand how you had babies if dad is gay. That kind of thing, I'm like, well, we had sex. I mean,
right.
I guess, it's easy to have sex, I said. I didn't really even remember how I handled that. I don't think that one thing we did do, or I did, Jeff probably did it, I don't know, was to assure them that if they felt that they were gay or that they had attraction to the same sex or both sexes or anything, pansexual, sapiosexual, whatever they wanted to be, there was a place for them in our family and in the world. That was never going to be, it's not the most important thing about you, who you're attracted to. The most important thing about you is who you are
as a person, yes.
Which has very little to do with who you're attracted to, honestly.
That is so true. That is so true.
I did do that, but I just think they were left. They were already bewildered. It was such a dervish. It was such a tornado. It seemed like it was frenetic and chaotic when he came in and flew out, and there was a lot of crying and frothing, and those were hard years. And I think the kids got lost in that. Not just the homosexuality, all of it. Losing a parent. We had been missionaries. Our life already was weird. Their lives were not like their peers. Their peers didn't have heroin addicts sleeping on their sofa. Their lives were so different than the experiences of their classmates. And so their dad being gay probably wasn't high on the radar of things to feel ostracized about. But I could be wrong. I don't want to speak to them.
And it has, where is it with the children today now? They're adult children. They're raised.
Yeah.
And what is the relationship with Jeff from your perspective, Abigail?
Well, I think they are working on something pretty beautiful. There's some anger. The oldest one, who's probably the most intellectual of the three, they all come with these special gifts. And the one that's sort of a thinker in the group, they all come with these different ways of approaching the world and thinking. But the oldest had to set she needed a timeout with her dad. They all live up in Detroit. The kids all are independent up there, and Jeff lives up there with his husband. And I'm about to move up there myself for a year for what I'm calling my big city holiday to have some fun with everybody. But I think the oldest said, I need a break. I need some time to, she was hurt. She had felt abandoned by him. She wanted to work through those feelings. He was ready. He's a hugger. He's an enveloper. Let's make it copacetic and good for everybody. Let's everybody be happy. And she wasn't ready to brush away the pain that she had felt as a child, and she got the brunt of it. She was the oldest. She waited by the window for the promised visits that never came. She felt it. She remembered it. She needed to deal with that. So she stiff-armed him, held a firm boundary, which was very difficult for Jeff because he needed everything to be okay.
Right.
And then he eventually respected her boundary, and they are in a relationship that is meaningful and powerful to the both of them. So that's credit to Jeff, too. Now, my firstborn's phenomenal. She's like this badass in the world. She really is. But it's credit to Jeff, who finally was able to let her feel her feelings and legitimize her experience with him as a father, and not try to make it okay.
And not try to fix her.
and not try to fix it or make it okay for himself. It wasn't so painful for him because, he had to own up to some.
And he had to feel the pain of what he did. He had to feel the
Stuff.
pain of what he did. Absolutely.
Right. We all screw up as parents. We all screw up as humans. I've done the same, but he has some accounting to do.
Absolutely.
He really did. So yeah, I would say that the relationship he's about family. He's the cornerstone of the family, and he's pulled everybody together. He's got a great partner. His husband is wonderful and also supports that. And it's one of the reasons I'm moving up there. I want to be part of the family for a year and have fun.
And I think this was such a surprising to me, but because it's unusual to have an ex-wife move up to be near her gay husband who's married to a man, and that has to take a lot of courage on your part. Courage that wasn't overnight; it was a process. But a courage to be able to, you want the family to stay together. You didn't want it to be defined because Jeff was gay. You wanted the family to be together because at his core, he's a good man. And at your core, you're a good woman. And you were good parents. And especially, I was just going to say, good parents who made a lot of mistakes, as I did. I only had one, and I did.
I made different mistakes than Jeff, but I'm paying for mine as well. I think when my second husband betrayed me and I wrote that book, I ran away to a tiny little Appalachian mountain town called Murphy, North Carolina, and I hibernated and I incubated, and I decided I was going to heal through that thing, and it's where for the last 2.5 years I've lived in a very small life. I write a column for the local paper. I podcast for them. I write. I'm an editor and ghostwriter by career, and I fell in love with myself. I learned to fall in love with myself. I'm not saying that as a platitude. I'm not being glib. This is guileless. I'm telling you, I have fallen in love with myself. And I realized about 6 months ago, I don't really need the little incubation of my forest home. I don't need to live in the woods anymore. I want to go have an adventure. And I thought, I moved to Murphy. I didn't know anyone, and I don't want to do that again. So I thought, I want to be with my people. I want to go be with my kids and Jeff and his people, his husband, Michael, and they have a great circle and they were warm. And I asked them all, what do you think about that will change the dynamic of the dance you guys have going on in there. I'm going to bring my own steps. And everybody was like, come on, let's do it. And, you check back in 6 months, we might be like, oh my gosh, it's a terrible decision. Get out. But I don't know. But I want it for a year. I'm going to do a project up there, a podcast project called Big City Holiday. I'm going to try to do a 12 series podcast on country comes to town, essentially living in a big, after being hibernated in the woods for so long.
Well, let us know when you're doing that. I'd love to hear it.
I will, Dan. You might enjoy it.
Yes.
Because Jeff will be in it. Yeah.
Did you get, by the way, the book that I sent you, my book, Courage to be Courageous, Alexa said it arrived today. So it's probably in your little box.
Yes.
It's like your box down your country road.
It's the top of a muddy lane. I don't leave my house often. It's probably up there locked in a little community box. It's for the whole neighborhood.
Yes.
And it'll be there. It'll be there when I get up there. I'll look for it.
Well, your comments on that would be greatly appreciated. It is
Yes, of course. I'm anxious and excited to read it. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. I want to talk a little bit about the idea of forgiveness. And I think Abigail made a comment about the garden of forgiveness. Do you remember that? The garden of forgiveness?
I think I said something about, first of all, forgiveness takes a super long time.
Yes.
And when I was first deciding to forgive, because it's a choice, my garden was it was hard ground, it was clay. Until I'd done any work on it, I'm just like, I'm going to start throwing out seeds of forgiveness. Something's going to stick. But of course, it requires attention. It requires killing. It requires weeding. It requires, like any meaningful thing, you've got to tend to it for it to grow. And so eventually the seeds did start sticking. And then I started, the beauty of the forgiveness started overtaking the weeds and the clay and the hardness, the bitterness of not forgiving. But I did mention to you, Dan, and to me, I thought forgiveness was going to be it. I was going to be free and flying in the world. I have forgiven Jeff. I am a woman who walks in forgiveness and lives in forgiveness. I am free. But it didn't happen that way for me. I did I did soften, and it did help me love myself more, which was always the goal for me, to learn how to love myself more. It was a motivator to forgive so I could love myself more. It was when I was able to be grateful to Jeff and the experience we had together. It was when I was able to be grateful to my husband who betrayed me with the mistress. And even became grateful for the mistress. Not snarky gratitude in the sense people are like, thank you, because now I'm awesome, like a smack. It was true. I have true gratitude for both ex-husbands in my life. Both betrayed me because I really, and this is going to sound platitudish, I don't even know another way to say it. I wish I had different language, but I am awesome. And I couldn't be in love with myself and live this kind of joy I have with waking up with myself every morning if I hadn't had those experiences. I am deeply grateful for the lessons. Look, they were cruel teachers, all of them. They were cruel, mean, unforgiving, hard teachers. But I learned the lessons. I guess that's what I needed to learn the lesson because, gosh, I sure like the way I'm educated now.
Yes, yeah. Well, it's like lemons. You can be stuck on the sour of a lemon, or you can take it and make lemonade out of it. It's
you
what
could squeeze
you
it
do
in your
with
martini, which is what I did.
Absolutely.
Put it straight into that vodka and take a slug.
How about that? Yeah. I think we've all done some of that sometime too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, listen, I was in a phase. I depended on alcohol for a period of time. I'm not on the floor anymore. I don't drink vodka from a bottle. I'm sober. I'm safe. I'm healthy. I don't want to give away an impression that I'm something I'm not. Yeah. Those days are behind me.
I gotcha. I hear that as well. So let's talk a little bit about the idea of gratitude and forgiveness, how the two, for you, Abigail, relate. Is forgiveness and give you gratitude, or does gratitude give you forgiveness, or are they both interchangeable?
I don't think they're interchangeable. No, I think they're two distinct entities. And I would argue that without forgiveness, you cannot have gratitude. You can't get there. So I don't want to say it's a phase, but it's certainly a journey. It's a process I felt, for me, I should say just for me. Other people, maybe they can achieve gratitude without forgiveness. And forgiveness is ongoing, by the way. It's not like a foul swoop, a magic wand. Woo, I forgive you, I'm done. I'm still tending to that garden. I'm still pulling the weeds from that garden and enjoying the flowers. But I don't, for me, to find the freedom and the joy and the self-love that I have now, I had to go through forgiveness first. And that was years of forgiveness. It was a hard, dark, lonely, cold road.
What got you through it? What got you through it?
Well, there were several things. With Jeff, I had the 3 kids, and there wasn't any way on this planet that I was going to be a bitter, bad-mouthing, brittle, anti-their dad person. I wasn't going to badmouth him or create an enemy out of their dad. Look, he wasn't doing this on his own. He made his own choices in there. They could see who he was on their own. They didn't need me to. And also, by the way, I didn't feel, this is me personally, some women might disagree with this path, but I didn't feel it was moral or right for me, ethical even, to place the pain that I felt as a wife from their dad leaving us the way he did and choosing to be going into becoming who he was, to be gay, and conflating that with the pain and rejection they felt as children. My journey as a wife wasn't their business. I felt like it wasn't theirs to carry. Oh, your dad did this to me, and your dad did that to me, and your dad, he tricked me or betrayed me or used me, or there's some usury in there when you're a leader in the church and you realize all these years you're like, what a fake out, man. You used me to get the microphone or whatever you think. That wasn't theirs to carry. It was my job to help them carry their pain. Their job wasn't to carry mine. So in order to do that with any kind of integrity and meaning, I had to start throwing out the seeds for forgiveness. Honestly, it was a necessity for me. I forgave for my sake. I didn't do it for his. I did it for me and for these kids because can you imagine look at these kids who grow up with their parents hating each other.
Yes.
Do you know how mean and cruel the world is anyway? And to take, Jeff and I loved each other as best we could in our situation. We love each other probably identically today as we did when we were married, which was like very good friends. And we created these 3 kids in love. And then we're going to tear that fabric apart for them. They share his DNA. And I'm going to degrade that DNA. I'm going to cause them to question the integrity or honor or decency of that DNA or that person in their life. I'm not doing that. Look, it's already hard out there. People are mean.
Yes.
So my job is to be not mean.
Wow.
And it starts with not being mean to myself. I don't know if that's making any sense.
No, it makes total sense. And it's
that's it. Okay. It might be confusing because it's a weird philosophy.
No, I don't think it is. I think it's secure. I think it certainly resonates with me. I know many of my listeners will resonate. I think it's going to resonate with people who have been through a lot of pain and they don't necessarily have gratitude right now and they don't have forgiveness. And that's where they're at today. And that's where you were at one time, but you've worked through it. You've had the courage to be able to accept Jeff for who he is as a gay man. Your children have accepted that. It's a tremendous amount of courage on your part, Abigail. I mean, my hat's off to you for your forgiveness, for your gratitude, for your willingness to share this vulnerable story. I think this will be an incredible podcast for women out there, particularly who have got a situation going on similar to yours. So,
well, I would like. Can I? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Say one thing before you talk.
Absolutely, no problem. I got to.
Okay, just again as a final thing, I'm a little worried I misrepresented something, and I want to retract it and restate it.
Okay.
In a way with more clarification. I am in a good spot, but I'm 20 years away from that pain. I'm a long way away from what happened in my marriage. It was a dark, miserable, difficult time for years. And I felt rage and pain and despair and powerlessness, which was a major thing I felt. I had no power, I felt, over any of it. And for anyone who's experiencing that, don't skip the steps. Honor the pain that you're sitting in. Sit in it. Invite it to tea. It's your companion, and it's okay to be there for as long as you need to be there.
Absolutely.
It took me a long time. So I don't want to make it sound like I've reached something worthy. The journey itself is worthy. And I couldn't, the pain part is just as valuable as the gratitude part. It really is.
And I think, sometimes the biggest parts of our life that are the most hurtful and the most painful, there's a gift. We don't see the gift at the time, but there is a gift from it. And I say that when people, even when you've lost someone, even when someone has passed on, there's a gift. You say, how in the heck could there be a gift with that? But the gift comes, and you shared a point right there where there was a gift for you. You said that without the 2 situations with your 2 ex-husbands, you wouldn't be where you're at today without that experience. That right there is your gift. It's the gift of where you're at today, too. I want to make one comment and kind of in closing, because I asked Abigail when we did the review of this, what she would say to any individuals out there who are listening that are in the similar situation. Now, there may be gay guys out there listening to this podcast who haven't come out to their wives. There may be women that haven't come out to their husbands. What would your story and the story that you went through and the process that you went through, would you like to speak to those individuals that are listening of how your story could help them to get through whatever they're going through right now? What would be your last words or your last comments regarding that, Abigail? What do they?
Well, sorry, Dan.
No,
I'm so eager.
No. I'm eager to have you talk.
I would say, you're in a relationship that's based in love, whatever that love is. Maybe it's not eros, maybe it's friendship or whatever. There's a love there with the person that you're with. And your inability or unwillingness or resistance to live authentically, to tell the person that you want to live authentically, damages you. Of course it does. You already feel that pain. You're living half yourself. But you're damaging the person you love as well. Because ultimately, that person will gain freedom from you living authentically. So I think in some ways, run to the person that you love, run to the person you're with, no matter the situation, the kids or the finances or whatever reasons you can put in your way to become an obstacle, and say, this is who I am and I have to live this way. And after the shock and the anger or whatever, in love and true love, that will benefit both people, and it will benefit the children if there's children involved. To live falsely, to live clipped, to live diminished is a disservice to every single person in your community and in our world, on our earth. We have to live fully and truthfully and honestly and authentically and loudly in the best way that we can. And that benefits everybody. I think there's harm in the secrecy. I think there's harm to everybody with the secret.
I totally agree with that.
In the honesty. That's what I would say. And I know everybody has a different set of circumstances, but gosh, I mean, it starts with honesty. What a novel thing.
Yes.
Let me be honest with the person I love.
You know, and I totally support this 100% because that's exactly what I did when I ended my marriage to my second wife. I couldn't live with the pain that I caused myself and the pain that I caused with her. And a lot of it, my pain came through shame of who I was at my core.
Yeah.
I was guilty for a lot of things I did, but the shame, as I had mentioned in an earlier podcast, nibbles away at your core, and you cannot live in shame. And shame keeps you from being honest. So when you're ashamed about something, then you're dishonest. And in many cases, as I said before, you use addiction to be able to bury that. Abigail, it's been such a pleasure having you on my podcast. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being able to share your story, to be able to have a voice, to be able to show forgiveness and graciousness and gratitude. And I want to thank you and the courage that you've shown by being able to walk through all the different levels of pain to get where you're at today. I think that others will be able to identify with that. Thank you, Abigail. It's been such a pleasure getting to meet you, and hopefully we'll be able to meet you one day. Take care.
I think so too, Dan. I was thrilled to be on your podcast. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. I look forward to meeting you in person. Bye-bye now.